What's up guys, Andre here, and today I'd like to take a look at Livewire. Livewire is a full stack framework for Laravel that provides an alternate way to write some of your JavaScript code. However, you're not actually writing any JavaScript, you're essentially writing your JavaScript in PHP. Magic. Now, you can't replace all your JavaScript with Livewire components. Its use case is for replacing JavaScript that makes requests to your server. So for things that only require DOM manipulation, you would still use normal JavaScript. So take a look at the marketing page here if you want some more information, but we'll go ahead and take a look at two examples just so you see what is going on. So the first example is in the documentation. It's a basic counter, and it shows you how a counter is created in Vue, which I already have in my project. And then it shows you how to do it with Livewire. So we'll start with that. So here I have my Laravel app, and I have a very basic counter that just counts up and down. Nothing special, just a Vue component here, and just two methods that decrements and increments the count here. Okay, now let's go ahead and see how this was done in Livewire. So let's go ahead and compose or require it. Okay, what's next? So it says to include the JavaScript with this directive. So here is the page I have it on, and I have a section for the Vue component, which is already there, and then I have a section for the Livewire component, which we'll add in a second. We have to add this directive, so we'll put it right above the script. Okay, what's next? Now we have to create a component, so we can use this artisan command. So this will generate two files, the counter and the blade file. Okay, now let's add some code. Let's take a look at the counter first. So the counter is an app HTTP Livewire counter, and it's just returning the Livewire component, which is in resources, views, Livewire counter. So just like a Vue component, you need a master or a root tag. So let's just say hello from Livewire for now, just to see it working. And let's make sure to save this. So yeah, this might be a bit confusing because we have the normal Laravel view called counter, and we have the component. So maybe name your Laravel view different, but we'll just leave it. And now to use it, we just have to do this. So I'll just say Livewire counter. So that would be in here, and that should render out. So let's take a look. Okay, there it is. So now let's fill in the code to make the counter working, and you'll see the magic that's going on. So back to our docs. Let's check out the counter functionality. So this would go in your counter.php. It's just a class that has a public variable, in this case count. So similar to mailables in Laravel, this will be available to your view without explicitly passing it in. So as you can see here, we're not passing it into the component, but it's available in there if you make it public. So let's do this. So let's open counter. I thought I opened it. Let's add that public field. Okay, let's add these two, which is essentially the same thing as in our JavaScript component, but now we're in PHP. So let's put that right here. And I believe that's it. Let's take a look at the docs. Yeah, that should be it. And if I did this correctly, did I save it? I did. Refresh. Oh, sorry, I have to add the template here. So back to the docs. Yeah, I forgot this part. So we just have to add this to our template right here. And then this should work. So like I said, the count is available because we made it public in our class. And this is an event which calls the PHP method, similar to click in Vue. So if we look at our view component, we have click, and then we call the method. Pretty much the same thing here. We use wire click, and then all the magic happens and it gets called in our PHP code. So now this should work. So we have this, and there you go. Our counter is working, but now everything's happening on the server. So I hope you can see how cool this is. Now that we're in PHP land, we can do anything that we can do in PHP. So for example, if you want to persist this data, we totally can, and we don't have to write an API for it since we're already in PHP. So let's go ahead and persist this to a database. So the idea here is this, I'm going to add a field to the user model, and each user will have a count here. So let me just do PHP artisan make auth to make use of that scaffolding. And I'm going to go into the migrations and change that. So that would be in database migrations. Here we go. I'm just going to add a count field. So I'm just going to put after password. Make it an integer. And say count. And let's make it nullable. And default to 0. And let me make sure my database is working. Migrate. Okay, cool. So let me quickly make a user. So if I go to /register, this should work. Okay, I'm just gonna make a user. And now I'm gonna put the component we made in here instead. So counter. So this is the component. I'm just gonna grab this. We need this too, so let me grab these two. And I'm going to put it in home.blade.php, which is this section, this page right here. So I'm going to get rid of this, paste that in, don't need this, and we'll put this at the bottom. Actually, yeah, we'll put this in the main layout. So I'll put this in app layout, I believe. What is it? Layouts app. So I'll put it here on the bottom, right here before the body. And then now this should appear. Okay. So I want each user to be able to have their own count. So I'm going to open this in the database. And let me just change the count here for this user to 2. Save that. And I want this to be 2 for this user. So how do we get that value in here when we load it? So if we go back into our Livewire component, right here, sorry, not here, in our PHP class, this, similar to view components, has lifecycle hooks. And in the lifecycle hook, we can initialize that. So we can do mount, and there's no params. And now we don't have to initialize it here, but we can initialize it in here. So this count is the logged in users count. So auth user count. And now if I save that and I refresh this, there should be 2. Cool. Now for increment and decrement, we can still update the instance variable. But now we just want to make sure that we update database as well. So auth user count equals this count. And then auth user save. And same for decrement. So I'm going to just copy this, paste it in here. And now magically this should work. So 2, 3, refresh, and it stays at 3. Cool. And if you want to see the database, there it is. And decrement works as well. So 1, database 1. Awesome. Okay, let's make a simple ToDo app so we can get familiar with using CRUD within Livewire. So I'm going to make a new Livewire component. So PHP artisan make Livewire. Sorry, this is the wrong one. It's this one. PHP artisan make Livewire, let's call it to-dos, and we'll just put everything in one component. So let's go to to-dos blade, and I'm just going to see if this is rendering. Let's change the home blade to this new to-dos, and let's see if this works. Okay. Now I'm going to paste in just a form here for the to-do, and then we'll fill it in. And it's just using Bootstrap. There's nothing going on here, just static HTML. Let me just indent this and see how it looks. Okay. And let me just add the checkbox here so we can check the different to-dos. So right here, so this is Flexbox. So we can add another one here for input type equals checkbox. Will that do anything? Okay. And maybe we want to put it in here. Okay. And maybe give it a margin right of, I don't know, 4. And we got to put it on the other ones too. Actually, no, I'll just leave it here because we're going to loop over this later. So I'll just leave the other ones. So we have our Livewire component. We just have to set everything else up. So I'm going to make a model for to-dos, and the relationship between users and to-dos is a user has many to-dos. So we have to set up that relationship as well. So let's quickly scaffold everything out. Make model to-do minus a will generate everything. So let's go ahead and start with the migration, I guess. So there it is. And I'm just going to paste in the code here so you don't have to watch me put in the fields for the to-dos. So I'm just going to paste in this. And we have an ID. We have a user ID, which references the ID on users. We have a title for the to-do, and we have a Boolean completed for the to-do. And that's basically it. Now let's set the relationship. So I'm going to go into my app user, and let's do a relationship down here. So it's going to be to-dos, and it's going to be this has many to-dos. Okay. And let's set it up the other way now in the to-do model. Actually, I'm just going to paste it in to save some time. So there is the belongs to relationship, and I also added the fillable fields. Okay. And now if I did that right, I'm going to do a PHP arson migrate fresh. Cool. And now let's add some data, or at least one piece of data. Let me log out here. And let's go to register. And we'll add a user here. And now let me just manually add some to-dos in the database. So there's a user. And I'm going to add some to-dos manually here. Okay, so I added 2 to-dos in the database manually. And now let's go back into our code and let's take a look at the to-dos class for Livewire. So right here. And to pass in the to-dos, you can do so here, just like how you would pass in a blade component. Let's say to-dos. And it's just auth user to-dos, since we set up that relationship. And now if we loop over them, so back to our to-dos blade, we want to loop over this one. So let's just say for each. Now we have that to-dos variable available as to-do. Now we can just move this in here. Okay. And we just have to replace this with ToDo title. So ToDo title. And the other two are still in there, but let's see if this works. So there we go. We see the ones from the database, and these are the ones we hard-coded, which we can get rid of. Okay, now let's work on adding to-dos. So this is currently a form, but in my example project, I'm not using a form. So I'm just going to remove that for now. You can use a form. It works for submit as well. But like I said, the way I have it working, I'm not using a form. So let's remove it. And does that look okay? Okay, it looks fine. Let me just add a margin on this. Okay. So we want to add a click event on the button, or we can do it on the enter key event too on the text box. I think I'll do click first and then I'll move it to that after. And we want to call a method here. Sorry, not in here. Right here. And let's call it add to do. Now, how do you pass in the actual to-do title? So to do that, we're going to use two-way data binding. So if you use Vue, you're very familiar with how that works. And in Livewire, you can do something similar. So to grab the value of the text box, we can create this binding here. And to do that, we do wire model and the name of the variable here. And now in our to-dos, here, we have to declare that as an instance variable. So we can do public title, and let's make it empty by default. And now we can add this add to do method. So let's do that. We can put it down here. Say add to do. And there's need a parameter, and we can do to-do create. So we have a user ID, and that can be auth ID, and the title is going to be the instance variable, which will get updated and pass through. So I do this title, and then completed by default, let's just say false. And let's make sure to import this. Okay. And with any luck, this should work. Let's take a look. So let me just refresh this. False. What did I do wrong here? Oops, forgot this. Okay. Refresh. And let's try adding one. Adding. Add. There we go. Cool. And if I refresh, it stays there, and to prove to you it persists. There it is in the database. Cool. Okay, let's make it work with the enter key instead of the button. So that's simple enough. Let's go back to our to-dos, and let's change this, or we can get rid of this button entirely. Let me just comment it out actually, so you guys can see it. And we can get rid of this value. And to add the listener for the enter key, it's very similar to Vue. So we do wire, key down, and then the modifier is enter. And we can do add to do. Now this should work the same way, but now we're just pressing the enter key. Hello, enter, cool. Okay, now how would we do validation? So it's very similar to how you would do it in Laravel. So we can add something in here that checks the error bag. It's going to paste it in here, and it just checks if there's an error for the title, and then it just displays it here in red if there is an error. And to do error validation, it's almost the same thing, but there's no request coming in here. We just call this validate, like this, validate, and then we can just say the title is required, or any validation rule you want. Required. Okay, and now that should work. So if I save that, refresh this, and if I try to enter something without anything there, then we get that. This title field is required. There's some CSS issues there. We just have to not make it flex. So we don't need this class. And then that should work. So one more thing here I forgot to add is after we add the to-do, we want to clear out the text field. So to do that, we just have to do this title is empty string, just like how we do it in JavaScript. So let's test out the validation first. Cool, it's behind my autocomplete. And now it should clear after we add this. Awesome. Okay, now let's work on deleting to-dos. So back to our code, back to our component here. I have a form here as well, but again, I'm just going to use the button here. Okay, so let's call a event handler on this for click as well, and let's do wire click, and it's called a delete to do method. And we can also pass in a parameter here, and we need the to do ID. So we have that in our loop. We can just pass it in like that, and that should work. Now in our to-dos, let's add a method. I called it delete to do, right? Yeah. Delete to do, and we're taking the ID, and we just do to do find ID and delete. See if this works. Save, refresh, and just clear this one or delete this one, and it works. Cool. Refresh, and cool, it does work. So if you want to combine this with some minimal JavaScript to add a confirm, I found a little cool trick on the issues in the repo. So back to our blade here, and I'm going to put this on its own line just so we can see what's going on here. And let's add a bit of vanilla JavaScript here and listen for the onClick event. And onClick, we're going to just use the JavaScript confirm method and just ask, are you sure? And we also have to mix this with an or and event.stop immediate propagation in order for this to work. So yeah, I saw this in the issues, and it's a cool way to combine some vanilla JavaScript with this action below it. So this will not proceed. This will not proceed unless the user presses OK. And if they press cancel, nothing will happen. So let's verify that works. Okay, so there should be a confirm dialog. There it is. Cancel will not delete it, but OK will delete it. Cool. And it's fresh. And it is gone. Awesome. Okay, now let's work on checking the to-do and marking that as complete, and also adding a line through here. So let's start with the CSS. We have to add a class that has that line through. So I'm going to go to the layout. It's right here, and I'm just going to add one piece of CSS here, right here. Let's put a style tag, And we'll do, let's call it completed. And we'll do text decoration line through. Okay, let's verify that this does work. So it will be on this. So it'll be completed. See if that, I just want to see if the CSS works. Okay, cool. And this would be a conditional. So we'll add that in right now. So we want that class if ToDo is completed. Then completed, else nothing. Okay, so that should be nothing right now because they're all false. Let's see if this works. So we'll manually do it right now. Let's change this to 1. Save, refresh. Okay, so it does work. Now to get the toggling to work, let's make that work. So we just have to listen for a change event here. So wire change, say, call a method called toggle ToDo, and we have to pass in the ID of the ToDo we want to toggle. So ToDo ID, and that should do it. Now let's add that in our ToDos. So let's make a method called toggle ToDo, and we're getting the ID, and let's grab the ToDo find ID. Let me move this up. Okay, and we want to just flip the bit. So ToDo completed is not ToDo completed. And let's make sure to save that. Okay, let's see if this works. Refresh. And I made a mistake. Sorry, forgot the dollar here. Okay. Okay, so let's try this. If I add this, seems to have worked. I'm gonna refresh it. And it persists. Double check the database. There it is, cool. So that works. Let's try untoggling. So it does untoggle, but we have to make sure the check state is in the right state as well. So we'll add that in a second. Okay, so let's work on the check state. So back to our blade, we just have to add a checked attribute here if it's completed. So we'll just do ToDo completed, checked, and if not, nothing. Okay, cool. Let's see if the check state works now. Okay, it does. Awesome. Check. Okay, so let's work on editing. So the idea here is I want to click on this and I want a prompt to come up, and then if they press cancel, I want nothing to happen, but if they press OK, I want the title to update. So this is going to be quite similar to how we did delete, and we used a confirm dialog here, but instead of the confirm, we're going to use a prompt. So let me show you what I mean. So here is the link here. So I'm going to just put this on its own line. And I'm going to grab what I have here for delete, and we'll change this. So it's not going to be a confirm anymore. We have to use a prompt. But I have to use a custom method, which I'll define in a second. Say update ToDo prompt, and this will do the prompt in there. Just we have to like save the value to a variable and do some checking if they pressed OK or cancel. And for here, we're going to pass in the ToDo title. So we'll do ToDo title, because we want this to appear when the prompt comes up. And the method we want to call on the back end is called update ToDo. And we need to pass in the ToDo ID And we also need to pass in the thing that the user typed into the prompt, which we will save locally in our JavaScript in a variable called ToDo updated. Now, for this JavaScript, I have to define this method. And to do that, you can just add your own script section here. So I'm just going to paste in the script. I'm going to put it before the closing div. And there's that function, update ToDo prompt, which I called here, up here. So what this is doing is preventing the default, and we have this variable here, which only gets populated if they pressed OK. So this is just checking, don't need this. This is checking if they press cancel or if the string is empty. And if it is, then return false. And if it returns false, then it won't proceed because of this trick. But if they did type something in, then we save it to this variable, and then we pass it in to the backend here. And in the backend, we just have to add that update ToDo method. Update ToDo. And this takes in the ID and also the title. So ToDo find ID, and we just have to update the title. So ToDo title is the title coming in, and then ToDo save. And with any luck, if I did this correctly, this should update. Okay, so let me just refresh, and I have an extra tag here. Where's that? Well, yeah, so this is closed over here. Let me put this on its own line. Cool. Save. Okay, so let's try this. Okay, so it doesn't work. What's my error? Okay, so I'm getting some errors with view here. So let me just turn off view since we're not using it. I just used it at the beginning of this video to show you the view component. So I believe in layouts app up here. Yeah, let me just comment this out. Okay, is this working? Okay, this is a different error. Update ToDo prompt is not defined. Okay, so as you can see, I'm getting this error, unexpected end of input. But for whatever reason, if I put the console log back in, it seems to work. So if I refresh, it seems to work. So it seems to be some sort of parsing issue with the JavaScript. And I'm just going to leave my solution in there for now. So there we go. It populates this text field with this. If I press cancel, it will not update. But if I do, we'll see that console log. And if I do change, if I did this correctly, this should update. And it did update, but it updated with the wrong thing. Okay, so I cannot for the life of me figure out why this is not working. Obviously, the title is being passed in as the ID, and it was working yesterday, and this package is being actively developed, and there was a lot of changes pushed this morning at the time of this recording. So I suspect there is an issue there. Just to show you it working for the project I was working on last night, here we can update this, change, okay, and there's the change there. So yeah, that's what's supposed to happen, but for some reason it's not working, and it's passing in the first parameter thinking it's the ID, and that's what's happening. So yeah, if I find a fix, I will note that in the description below. So there you have it, guys, a first look at using Livewire with Laravel. I think it's pretty awesome, and I definitely see myself using it in the future. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one. Okay, thanks. Bye.